ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ
पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दम् कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटः जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलम् गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरम् हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः वेपीयमानम् मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजम् कलिमलम् प्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालम् पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिम् यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Okay. Yeah, karmas are inexhaustible. So we are on that section. Thank you. Let me put in the reading order. Okay, so we'll begin with this part, and if Gunjanji can go ahead and read.
Yes. Karmas are inexhaustible. The cycle of life can be looked at through the model of karma. But if we do so, the model must be taken in its entirety. Suppose you say that by not doing any karma at all, there will be no problem, no punya or papa, and therefore no birth and death. The cessation of this cycle of birth and death is what is meant by liberation, moksha. Therefore, by not doing anything, you will accomplish moksha. Let others study the Gita. You do not need it because by doing nothing, you can gain moksha. To this, Shankara replies elsewhere by asking further questions. He asks, what about all the karmas standing in your account from previous births, sanchita karmas? Who is going to fulfill them even if you do nothing in this birth? Secondly, when did you decide not to do any more karma? Until you were 40 years old. All you did was karma. What about that karma? It also must be fulfilled. Furthermore, can you remain for even the briefest period of time without performing karma? When you have the I am a doer notion, you cannot but do karma. In fact, you cannot remain for even a second without performing some action or the other. And if you are not occupied with doing right karma, it will take you no time at all to do wrong karma. Not doing karma, therefore, is nothing but a pipe dream. There is no such thing as gaining moksha by not doing karma. Of course, karma is the cause for you being bound. No one ever said that karma liberates. Karma definitely binds the jiva. In fact, it is a third strand of a three-stranded knot. Ignorance is the first strand. Ignorance in the form of the notion I am a doer. Once this ignorance-born notion is there, you cannot avoid the second strand, desire or karma. If you think that you are small, limited and mortal, you will want to be big, full, immortal, all these desires. Because you do not want to be limited by ignorance, limited by the knowledge that you have limited knowledge, you do not accept ignorance. This means that you want to be free of the limitation of knowledge and ignorance, which is another desire. There is also the desire to be happy, to be free from unhappiness, inadequacy, lack. These desires arise because you do not know that you are already full. When this ignorance is there, desires will also be there, and of course, they will be according to your limited knowledge. Therefore, even your wants are not very big. You may want this and that, but they are all small wants really. Then, in order to fulfill these wants, you perform karma, which produces the punya and papa that create new births for you. Given this ignorance, desire, action cycle, you will remain bound by karma.
Okay, so this was a beautiful explanation of how the cycle of samsara continues. And just to recap, Puja Swamiji talked about three strands. First is that I am ignorant of my essential nature. So why is that a problem? If I'm ignorant of who I am, that is what you call ajnana, atmajnana. And what it eventually leads to is adhyasa. Because the mind wants to have some sort of an identity. You cannot be identity-less. You know, there's a very famous saying even in science that nature abhors a vacuum. A true vacuum cannot really exist. You know, something will always fill it up. If you try to remove all the air from a bottle, the external atmospheric pressure will crush that bottle. So, you know, it becomes in a crumpled state because it doesn't like a vacuum. It wants to fill it with something else. So similarly, the mind is exactly the same way, that it does not want to be a vacuum. It does not want to be empty. And so when the right knowledge of who I am is not there, the mind will pick up the wrong self-identity. So this is what you call adhyasa. So first it starts with ajnana, and then it moves over to adhyasa, which is superimposition. So because you don't know what the rope is, your mind will assume that it is a snake. The mind will not get away by saying, oh, I don't know what that is. It will say, no, this is a snake, because it wants to project something. So this is the nature of the mind. Nothing to blame about it. It's just the nature. So Pujya Swamiji often stresses that, there is no such thing as emptying the mind. There is no need for it also. The mind has to have thoughts. It has to have vrittis. It is the nature of the mind to be a flow of vrittis. It is like a river that constantly keeps flowing. So now this ajnana leads to adhyasa. And because of adhyasa, ultimately, you will want to have desires. You will have desires rather. And in order to fulfill these desires, you will perform actions. When you perform actions, you will either be binding some punya or papa. So one can argue that, acha, but isn't binding punya a good thing? Punya, everybody desires it, right? To an extent, yes. But then the punya can also become a shackle. So, for example, I think recently I heard Pujya Swamiji also say that wealth is a great virtue. To have wealth is a great blessing, not a virtue, sorry, but it's a great blessing of Sri Lakshmi Ma. But at the same time, a person can get, if the person does not have the right sort of viveka, the person can get completely lost in that wealth. Lost in living a very luxurious life, lost in going and purchasing a yacht and going off in the Mediterranean Sea, going fishing with his friends and this and that. You can do a lot of damage also if you don't use money wisely. So you have to, whatever you possess, whether it is knowledge, whether it is wealth, whether it is family or whatever possession that comes along your way is to be used and is to be implemented with the right sort of attitude. So one has to be careful about that. So these desires, so that is why they say that papa is a iron chain and punya is a gold chain. But both of these are ultimately chains which are shackling you. It is going to bind you at some point. So these are the threefold strands that propitiate the cycle of samsara. Any thoughts on this? Or if there's any input from your end or something you'd like to discuss, we can definitely talk about it.
It's just like a vicious cycle.
Oh yeah, it's a vicious cycle, definitely. And in fact, over here, since Pujya Swamiji says karmas are inexhaustible, ever since beginningless time, in fact, it doesn't even make sense to use an expression like beginningless time, but we have to understand that the nature of the Jagat in our teachings is cyclic. And by cyclic, I don't mean like, oh, you have a big bang and then you have a big crunch and so on, but that there are infinite number of universes and there are infinite lives that we have lived in one form or the other form. And in each of these life cycles, wherever we've had free will, we've gathered some karma. And all this karma gets put together in this giant bank account, which is what you call sanchitam. And these sanchita karmas are inexhaustible. So I may have shared earlier, but in my teenage years, I actually moved over to Jainism for a couple of years. And they have this exact idea that karmas can be exhausted. So their teachings are slightly, or I would say slightly, they're significantly different from ours. We say there's pap karma and there's punya karma. So for them, they have a different sort of vocabulary. They say there's shubh karma, which is similar to what we say punya. They say there's ashubh karma, which is similar to what we say papa. And then they have a third category, which is called shuddh karma. So that is some special sort of karma which purifies the other two karmas, or that cleanses or washes away the other two karma. Now, that time it made sense to me, but at least in retrospect, it looks a little strange. It doesn't make as much sense as before. So what they say is that if you sit in meditation, you are performing and then you're really focusing upon who you are and stuff like that. Then you are binding Shuddha karma, or rather you're gathering Shuddha karma which washes away the other two karmas. And so that is why if you see any depiction of these Jain Tirthankaras like Mahavir and all, they're always shown to be sitting in meditation and according to them, during that state in meditation when they are washing away all the karmas that they've gathered in all their lifetimes by performing some other kind of karma. So now as a Vedantin, obviously that doesn't make too much sense, because even if you're meditating, it is an action. You cannot kill actions through actions. Perhaps you can nullify a few things through prashchit karma. But meditation is not prashchit. You are actually binding something. No, you're anytime you perform an action, there is ultimately a result. And even supposing, for argument's sake, let us say that it is true, for argument's sake, that yeah, when you perform the Shuddha karma, you can wipe away the Shubh and Ashubh karma. But however, since you've lived countless lives and you've accumulated a countless figure of punya and papa karma, how can sitting in meditation for a few years or even for a few decades wipe all that away? There is some disproportion over there, right? It doesn't make logical sense. So in both categories, first is that of course it is an action, so there is no guarantee that action will wipe away action. And second is the timing factor, that the immense amount of karmas gathered through an infinite amount of lives cannot be nullified just by sitting in meditation for a few years. That is the part where we find some logical difficulty. Whereas in Vedanta, we say that yes, when you meditate, when you focus upon who you are and all, you are ultimately minding some punya karma, and that punya karma comes to you in the form of chitta shuddhi, because now you are negating who I am, who I am not. You're negating the nature of the self to be what it isn't. You're negating all these other adhyasas. And here, when I say adhyasas, I mean in the form of the pancha koshas or the sharira trayam or the three avasthas or whatever. So anything that you identify with, you're negating it through contemplation. But then this contemplation is not really an action per se. This contemplation is actually knowledge. You are removing the ignorance. So ignorance cannot be removed through action. Ignorance can only be removed through knowledge. But in order to remove that ignorance through knowledge, you first require to accumulate or gather that knowledge through a pramana. The knowledge has to be grasped by you, right? That grahanam is required. And that grahanam can only be happen when you're exposed to the object of knowledge through a pramana that connects the subject to the object. And that is why knowledge is very distinct from action. One cannot mistake knowledge for action. So when one is contemplating, the contemplation is definitely a form of an action. But the object of contemplation itself is knowledge. It is something where the knowledge is replacing ignorance. And so anytime one talks about jnana taking place, it is not an action, but it is a cognitive shift. Actions will take you to that state where you're able to contemplate, you are able to meditate, you're able to sit in a quiet place and think about who you are and whatnot. But the very process itself is a knowledge and ignorance based process. So any particular thoughts on that? Because I think this is a very important topic. The distinction between knowledge and action. Okay. Yeah.
You're talking about distinction, but it is only through knowledge that you will be performing the actions that will reduce your karmas, right?
Yes. So I will not use the word that knowledge will reduce, you will perform actions to reduce karma. So that is the Jain model which we don't actually accept.
Okay.
Only in specific cases, we say that yes, there are certain karmas which can be nullified through prayaschitta karma. So, for example, if you've done some unintentional or intentional also harm to somebody, or if you stepped on a few creatures while walking by mistake, then you will say a prayaschitta karma because it was not something that you really wanted to do, but later on you realize that okay, I made a mistake. And yes, so some of your karmas will be washed away, but not all karmas can be washed away through prayaschitta karma. Think of it this way, that you have a painting, and you first you start drawing an outline with your pencil. You can rub away that pencil outline with an eraser, but then once you start painting, then it's gone, right? Now you cannot do too much about it. So there are some things which you can negate, and there are many more things which you cannot. So one has to be careful about that distinction. So we don't accept the model that yes, all your karmas can be negated through new actions. So that is the first point. Sorry, you were saying something else also. I may have slipped.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is one point of discussion. I also was meaning that through knowledge, the next set of actions, because you're ignorant, you will perform certain set of actions. So, and you gain papa and punya. But after you gain the knowledge,
Yes.
And then also you are performing actions, right?
Yes.
But your actions will be different this time.
Yes, absolutely. So knowledge will be the guiding principle behind your actions. Knowledge will inform your actions. Knowledge will give you direction towards which your actions will go. So for a person who has a better understanding of ahimsa, through exposure to the teachings, through examples in the scriptures, through this vakya ahimsa paramo dharma and so on, a person may think twice before hurting somebody, before causing harm to a living creature or a fellow human being or any other animal also. So definitely once you have knowledge, your actions will be guided in that light. So yes, you're right about that. But the knowledge itself is not the action. The knowledge can help you channelize your actions better. Now,
Yeah.
another
Yeah,
interesting
now,
thing. Hmm?
yeah, I was getting to that.
I see. Another interesting thing is that a person who has knowledge of what they are doing is wrong and they continue doing that will actually bind more papam than a person who does it out of ignorance. Can you think of an example like that? Okay, let's just use a mean example, right? Let's say you're going out for a walk and you're looking, you're appreciating the nature, you're looking at the clouds, and you happen to step on a couple of ants and you didn't realize it. The ants are still dead. Now, next day you go walking in the same park, but you're looking down, and now you go out of your way to step on the ants just because you want to. I don't know, for some reason you're like a sadist. Who will acquire more papamo here? Obviously the second person, because there's an intention involved. So whenever there is an intention involved behind an action, the intention will amplify the result of the papam as well as the punyam. Now take the opposite example of a punya karma. Let's say you've gone out to a restaurant and you ordered a sandwich and you're eating it on the road now. You packed it. And you cannot complete it, and so you kind of like dump it on the side. And then you walk away. Now later on a beggar comes and he picks it up and he's very happy that somebody left a sandwich for me. Very good. You won't really get a punya karma for that because it was not something you were full, that's why you left it over there. Now the same action you perform the next day, you're still a little hungry, you're not completely like satiated, but you see a beggar on the road and you decide to give your half-eaten sandwich away to this person. The same amount of sandwich, but now there will be more punya karma associated with it because there was an intention of doing the right thing. And so the intention will amplify the result of papam as well as punya. And so if you know that you're doing something and you do it, that will definitely add an amplifier or a multiplier effect to all your actions. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. Also
Okay.
scares you more.
Why is that?
I mean, sometimes you tend to do the wrong actions, right? Sometimes we get angry, we
Yeah.
react so many ways, and still things are not under your control. I mean, the Chitta Shuddhi has happened, say 10% or 20%, not completely. So,
Yeah. So let's say when you lose your anger at somebody, when you lose your temper at somebody, and you do something wrong, in that moment you're not reflecting upon the knowledge. So there is
yeah,
a difference between, okay, so even if you go to a court of law, so here I would still argue that there is still knowledge that is not functioning. The knowledge is diminutive, it is diminished, it is clouded by some very strong emotion. So I'm not suggesting this, but I'm saying that when a person acts rashly out of pure emotion and they do something wrong, that will still bind less papam than a person who does the same wrong thing in a premeditated way. So you have, if you go to a court of law and you are tried for something, let's say somebody, let's just come up with a horrible example because it is always more effective to come up with an extreme example. You're walking on the road and somebody is driving a car and you're with your friend, your best friend, your childhood friend, somebody you loved for your entire life, and then that person gets hit by the car and he dies, or just to put an example. And now the guy gets down from the car and you start beating him up and you start like hitting him left, right and center that you crazy person, what did you do, and this and that, right? And now the cops come and then they take you away to jail because you've broken his leg or you've broken his hand and you bashed him up a little bit. The punishment will not be as much, as in the next case, let's look at the second example. Let's say, your friend is injured or your friend is dead, and now the person is obviously going to court, but the person made a mistake. So the person will not be held accountable for murder. That is what you call manslaughter. And there might be a 10-year or something imprisonment for that. Whereas murder has like 25, 30, or even a life imprisonment. Because this was negligence. It was not premeditated. But now you find out that person's address, you look at the license plate, and then you hire a few goons, and then you get that guy beaten up badly. That will earn you a very bad punishment in court, because this was actually a premeditated action. So when you're performing something wrong rashly out of pure impulse, out of pure emotion, you don't actually bind as much papa karma as you would if you were performing the same action deliberately in a very calm state of mind and still doing something wrong. You were actually planning and plotting to take revenge. You were planning to hurt somebody, planning to cause pain to somebody. That is the worst kind of action you can perform. So over here also, the intention and the emotional overtaking has some relevance to how much karma you will bind.
Okay. Yeah.
So, as one, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I didn't have anything more.
No, I was just Gunjan has some questions. So she was like, I often kill mosquitoes and I fear of the because of the fear of harm, and she's like wondering how much of papa do I gain out of it. And so I was just telling her that actually in Tattva we read something like these are called as sunaha. These kind of actions are called as sunaha.
Yeah.
And then by just saying some prayers, it gets nullified.
No, I disagree. In fact, I disagree with both you and Shamubai here. Pujya Swamiji said in a lecture, I'm quoting Pujya Swamiji, all right? I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing Pujya Swamiji. He said that mosquitoes are generally vegetarian, which is true. The only time they actually come out to draw people's blood is when the mosquito is pregnant and they are about to lay eggs. Because once the eggs are laid, they sit on some stale water or in a pond or something, and then they eat all the plant matter and the fungal matter and other like things. But every time you kill a mosquito, you're actually killing a pregnant mosquito with a lot of mosquitoes in its belly. Pujya Swamiji said that. And he said that he never killed mosquitoes himself. In fact, he also said in the talk that it is not good if one can avoid, then one should not be killing mosquitoes also. One should even show ahimsa towards the creatures which appear like small and negligible. Because think about it, let's suppose you knew that one of these mosquitoes, just suppose, was your great grandfather who due to some papa karma is born as a mosquito. Would it be right to actually kill it consciously? Now by mistake, if something happens, or if your fan is on and an insect comes and dies by mistake, yeah, definitely prashchitta will work there. But one should never ever in their life use prashchitta karma to first do something wrong and then say that, now I will do prashchit for it. Prashchitta karma is generally done when you've done something unintentionally. When you're walking and by mistake you step on an ant. So once, I was in my apartment in Atlanta, and it was very dark and the electricity had gone. So I didn't know what I was stepping on, and suddenly like I put my foot on something and I felt a squishy sound. And then I checked my foot and there was this like white kind of liquidy thing there, and then I realized I stepped on a cockroach, and I felt so bad about it because obviously it was unintentional, but I was feeling really bad. And then prashchitta works in such ways when you don't have control over what you've done and something just happens. So definitely it is wrong to trap mosquitoes. I mean kill mosquitoes. What I usually do is I'll if a mosquito is sitting on a wall or if it's sitting on the bed or something, I'll just bring a transparent cup and I'll like place it over that, and then I'll slide a sheet of paper underneath and I'll trap the mosquito, and then I'll go outside and I'll let it out. I'll let it free. I do the same thing with cockroach also. So you have these hit sprays. In India they sell hit. Never use that because you could just throw it away. Similarly, people use mouse traps. What the mouse trap does, it actually snaps the spinal cord of the mouse. And it's even a lot worse to actually kill a mouse than a cockroach, right? Because it is a mammal, it is a more evolved creature, it has a higher nervous system, brain function also. So any creature which has a more developed nervous system, there is even more papam involved in killing it. That is why people obviously think twice. They think twice, thrice, 10 times before killing a dolphin or a chimpanzee or any creature which is sufficiently intelligent. So there is one test. It's called the mirror test or the self-recognition test or something. I'm just sharing this as some general information, not super relevant. But if you hold, I've tried this with a dog. If you hold a mirror in front of a dog, they think it is another dog. If you hold a mirror in front of a cat, they'll think it's another cat and they will start pawing at it. Okay, oh, who are you? Why are you coming to my territory and so on. But if you hold a mirror in front of a chimpanzee, it behaves like us. It becomes self-conscious that, oh, there's a spot under my cheek and oh, my teeth are dirty. It will actually recognize itself. Same thing for a dolphin. So there are certain creatures which recognize themselves, and according to Western paradigms and Western thinking, they believe that these creatures are non-human persons. That is their classification. That they are like people in a animalistic sense, and that they are not to be harmed because they have that higher cognitive function. And to a certain degree, what they actually say makes sense. But we also extend it to the fact that this entire panoply of living creatures we have, right from the bacteria all the way up to evolved human beings, all of them are worthy of living. Everybody seeks to live. Everybody is conscious. Everybody has been through 4.5 billion years of Earth's evolution to be where they are today. In fact, 99.9% of all the creatures that have ever lived on this planet have gone extinct. So human beings are very callous. Somehow there is this understanding that we are the masters of the universe. We are at least the owners of this planet, and everything else is for us. So we decide which species to allow to get extinct. We decide that acha, the panda looks very cute, and therefore I will protect the panda because it looks very cute, and we don't want it to get extinct. But then there might be some other creature which does not look very cute and does not look very sweet, and you cannot create soft toys out of it to sell, which you may allow to go extinct by wiping away these rainforests in Amazon and by creating new constructions and coal plants and whatnot. So when you talk about ahimsa and when you talk about being a citizen of the world, there is a responsibility that we exercise towards all living beings, and this is something that Pujya Swamiji has often stressed. So whether it is a mosquito, a cockroach, a fly, or whatever, as far as possible, like please trap it gently and let it go outside. Open the window and throw it out. Because ultimately, it is a fellow creature that we are killing, and we should avoid that. So
there's a question. What about in turn if say if a mosquito will cause disease to us, then what?
So that's why you trap it and throw it out. Don't allow it to bite you. If it bites you, shake your arm and just move away. And it's believe me, it takes 5 minutes to catch a mosquito. I've caught at least 100 mosquitoes in my life.
Maybe we can prevent it also.
Sorry?
We can use prevention as the measure.
Yeah, prevention is the best.
We can just avoid it. Yeah.
I'll tell you, in USA people don't do this, but I do it because I care. All my windows in summer it gets very hot, so I put this mosquito net so that nothing enters only. Now sometimes if I'm sitting outside, right? Sometimes you want to get out of the house and sit outside just because it's nice and comfortable. And if a mosquito comes on me, I'll walk away. See, the mosquito, it's its genetic programming that it has to go and bite somebody when it is pregnant. It cannot help it. It doesn't want to hurt you. It is its nature.
It's karma.
But we humans, it is also our nature to slap the mosquito and squish it. But we are humans and we have both nature and nurture. We are able to override our natural tendencies through the buddhi. And that is what makes us human, because we are able to reflect that, should I kill it or should I not? See, the tiger, when it's hunting wildebeests or when it is hunting a deer or whatever, it never has that question that, is it ethical to kill that deer? But we can ask ourselves that question. And that is why the human being is Shrestha. The human being is one notch above all other creatures because we are able to morally rationalize our actions and our decision-making process. So, and also just for the record, most mosquitoes do not spread malaria and dengue fever. Most 99.9% of the species will not. So, I've been bitten by like countless mosquitoes, and I've never had that
They're
disease,
just
thank
the
God. Touch wood.
carriers, actually.
They're carriers. So,
Must,
if
yeah.
somebody has malaria and they bite that person, then if they bite you, you'll have malaria. So, but ultimately they are vectors. And if you are able to get rid of the disease itself, you'll be fine. Don't worry. And secondly, I don't recommend that you allow a mosquito to bite you. I simply say that, shake yourself so that the mosquito cannot put its proboscis into your skin and trap it. Trap it. The moment it sits on you, trap it. It'll get freaked out. It'll try flying around and slide a piece of paper. Ho gaya, come. And then gently let it out. Say that, thank you, mosquito. Thank you for visiting me, Atiti Deva Bhava, but I have to let you go because I care for myself. So that is how you protect yourself. Now, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe no, just adding upon, like, if at the end, if we get the disease, like whatever, we are bound to get that. Maybe that is our karma, destined. Once
No,
we get that.
so see, I mean, one can look at, okay, let's say we are looking at it in two ways. One is
No, once
retrospective.
we already get it.
Yeah, yeah. Once you get it, it is a karma, but you have to do as much as you can to protect yourself. But
Yes.
one has to also understand that protecting myself does not mean I have to hurt somebody also. I can protect myself in different ways. I can kill the mosquito or I can trap the mosquito. I can kill an animal or I can, be compassionate towards this. This is what Pujaswami, when we say the Dayanandaha, he was the embodiment of compassion. So that's why, in fact, I don't know, somebody told me this. I had shared this particular talk of Puja Swamiji where he talks about the mosquito. And they said, just today, before I heard the talk, I was actually thinking that, is it okay to kill mosquitoes? And then Puja Swamiji clarified my doubt that it's not. So sometimes, I found that Puja Swamiji will say random things, which you will wonder that, okay, this much I knew, but then somebody else may not have known that. And so he is so compassionate that he will even insert these, random bits of information, just general knowledge, that this mosquito is pregnant, therefore it comes to bite you, but it is usually vegetarian. And you'll actually feel for the creature. That, imagine there's a mother who is looking out for food for her children, and this is the only way she can get it. So, you don't reward that by murder. At best, you can say that, sorry, mother mosquito, I'll let you starve for a few days because I don't want to be bitten. Go bite a dog or some other creature on the road if you want, but don't bite me. So that is how we kind of, show compassion to all creatures, in my opinion.
But if you're telling it to, I mean, just taking your sentence, just for the argument's sake, now you're saying that go bite somebody else because she has to get her food, right? The mother mosquito has to get her food. Either way.
Yeah.
And then if you like, don't do it to me, do it to others. How good is that?
I mean, I was just exaggerating that. I wasn't really saying that, go bite somebody, don't bite me. I'm saying that I leave you to your karma. Do what you want. I don't want to be bitten. So the
Like,
thing is, I don't
it's
want to be
case of
bitten.
just free will.
No, so see, no, so now the mosquito, I'm leaving it to its own prarabdha. It may die also if it doesn't find food. The little eggs in its body will also die possibly. But
So
at least I am
because
not
of
killing
that
it.
also you'll get some papa, right? Because you
No,
didn't allow it to have food.
no. See, so there's a difference. Now, if you want to be very kind, you can allow it to have food also. But then you're creating a new problem, which is you are allowing the mosquitoes to breed further and grow further and, get out of control also. If everybody says, come mosquito, bite me, I'm free food, I've eaten a very heavy lunch and all this sugar and honey and nectar is in my blood, so please come and eat it. Then you're creating a new problem for society because you'll create new mosquitoes and people will find new measures to kill these new mosquitoes. But I'm simply saying that I leave you to your karma. You go do what you want, but just don't bite me. I'm protecting myself because I care for myself. Perhaps I have a small fear that I might get malaria or dengue, so therefore don't come near me. But go, and you're leaving it to its destiny basically. If it dies, but at least you are not killing it and you're not causing it harm. It's possible that there might be some dead or decaying thing. There might be a dead squirrel, possibly. It can go eat, suck blood from there also. Many times I see that we have something in US called roadkill. It's sad, but sometimes you have like these rodents like squirrels, and you have once I saw dead tortoise also, and then you'll see these possums. Possums are like these very cute creatures which look like raccoons a little bit. Sometimes you'll have dead deer on the road because cars drive very fast over here and then they get smashed. So then you'll find that crows are coming to eat it, vultures are coming to eat it, you'll find insects coming and crawling towards it. Sometimes mosquitoes will also go and suck its blood. So the thing is that nature finds a way to take care of itself. You are not responsible for the destiny of every single creature in the world. Ki, acha, there's one creature in the Sahara, there's a scorpion that is about to go extinct. What do I do? Can I save its life? No, you can't. But at least you don't go out of your way to cause harm to it. That is all I'm saying. That you allow it to do what it's going to do. If it dies, it dies. If it lives, it lives. But at least you don't bind, you don't form a collective prarabdha with that creature. Allow it to find its own path. Do whatever is possible where you are causing the least harm to others. That is the principle of ahimsa. That doesn't mean that you are responsible for everybody, but you're causing the least harm to people. And so in that sense, you're responsible towards yourself also.
Thank you, Prashant. That was a real enlightenment, I would say.
Thank you.
Gunjan, you had some more questions?
Sorry, I didn't read the...
Yeah, actually, I am still thinking since the time we had this discussion, because this is something I've just gotten to know today. A part of me is feeling guilty for having killed, insects so far, but then I'm still confused, because we can actually identify those mosquitoes which cause certain diseases, let's say dengue, and suppose I see such a mosquito and I just release it, and what if it might bite some other
So
member
here's my
of my
question.
family?
How do you know that mosquito has dengue? How do you know
No,
it's
I
carrying
can
dengue?
just, and that's why, yeah, I don't know that. There is no
Most
way
of,
to know.
so let me put it this way. Let's put it in a very obviously this is an exaggerated and inapplicable example I'm giving. So don't take it too seriously. But let's say there's somebody who has a contagious disease, or there's a disease which can spread, like Ebola virus. It spreads from humans to humans. And so now every human that comes to your home, you don't know if it has a virus. You're like, you know what? I'm not going to let this person leave. I'm going to kill this person before they go out and infect other people. See, what I'm saying is we don't know if what happens to other people, what happens to, if a mosquito, suppose also it has dengue and it goes bite somebody else. You don't know it. It is not our responsibility to go about exterminating mosquitoes of the fear that it might carry dengue. Because you see, everything in this ecology is connected. These viral fevers and whatever are not new. They have been there since time immemorial. Even cavemen must be falling sick now when they were like not having closed caves and whatever. But the thing is that life continues on, life propitiates on. We cannot take the responsibility for the rest of the world, assuming that this mosquito is carrying a vector or it is a vector for a disease. So the simple thing over here is that you simply mind your action. Ki chalo, I have not performed any papam. I don't want to make any assumptions. I'm living up to the simple conclusion, the simple precept that ahimsa paramo dharma. I don't want to cause pain to these living creatures, and now they are free to do whatever they want. And if there is some collective prarabdha between other humans or animals and creatures, and if they are to be bitten, it is not something that is up to me. It is not up to you. Even let's suppose all the mosquitoes in this world were exterminated just out of this fear that what if they cause malaria. First of all, malaria is on the decline. It's there in Africa, it's there in India, but in US and other places it's been exterminated. So if a mosquito bites me in the US, I will not care, frankly, because there is no malaria. It's not a vector for malaria. It's been exterminated in this country. Similarly, you all might be aware that smallpox has been exterminated from the world. There is no virus strain of smallpox left, not a single virus of it. And I believe, if somebody can correct me over here, polio? No, polio is still there, right? Yeah, but they are working towards it. They're working towards that also. So we, instead of attacking the vectors, we have to attack the disease. It is not the poor mosquito that is causing malaria. It is these poor diseases which the mosquitoes are also carrying. They are also having it in a sense. So we have to understand that. Secondly, if all the mosquitoes were exterminated, what would happen is the frogs would die. If the frogs would die, the snakes would have nothing to eat. If the snakes have nothing to eat, the rats and the mice will multiply like crazy. All these rodents will like go all over the world multiplying because they are the prey for these predators. When they are multiplying, you will have big problems in farms because they'll eat away all the grains and they'll eat away all the crops and all. Farmers will commit more suicide. So in a way, if I want to overextend, I can say that the killing of mosquitoes can lead to the suicide of farmers in Maharashtra, which is happening a lot. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but what I'm saying is that the consequences of actions are not in our control. We cannot project too much into the future. Similarly, we cannot project, if I let this mosquito go, he'll bite somebody. Even that is a projection of our own. We are trying to rationalize it. So the best thing to do is that simply we mind our action. We as Nivedita ji very rightly put, prevention is the best protection. You put up these mosquito nets in your windows if you want to have some fresh air. You have this machardani thing, in villages in India, not villages only, but even in cities in India, when the air conditioners were not in vogue. This was in the 1980s, 70s, 60s, and so on. People used to have this bed and they used to have a mosquito net kind of like sprawling around it. From the top, it used to like spill downwards. And so this is what they used to call machardani. In fact, I have when I visited a relative in Gujarat many years ago when I was a kid, I had the pleasure of like sleeping in such a bed where there's a mosquito net, and I used to see all these stupid mosquitoes outside. That, oh, you're coming to attack me! Ha ha ha! I used to make faces at them like, you can't touch me. So what I'm really trying to say is that we can avoid our footprint over here, this ecological harm footprint that is being created through our own actions. That's all. But we cannot project too far because everything in this jagat is in a balance. The whole planet is in an ecological balance which we cannot assume that we understand fully. In fact, Swami Paramathanandaji says that we when we talk about gardening, we think about some plants as weeds, but he says that weeds are only things that we give a label to for what we don't understand. So we don't understand or we don't appreciate it, therefore it is a weed. Now dandelions are pretty, right? I mean, if anybody has picked up these dandelion seeds, it's a sphere, and all these seeds are kind of like connected in a sphere. And when you blow at it, then they start flying outwards like these small little helicopters. It's very cool. You would love seeing that. But the same dandelions, if they grow on your grass lawn, then you say it's a weed. So basically, we are classifying things as this deserves to live, this deserves to die. This is a weed, this is a plant, and we should definitely as Vedantins having some samatva buddhi and having some kind of a sameness approach towards all creatures being conscious beings, we have to respect that. So that's what I'm really trying to put forward, that everything has a purpose which we don't understand, including malaria and dengue, which we have to try our best to eradicate. Okay, I'll give you another benign example just because I'm on a roll right now. Sorry. So 65 million years ago, there was a huge comet, a meteor rather, which crashed into the planet, and it wiped away the majority of living creatures. Like 95% of all creatures were gone in a single blow, in a single instance. It was a catastrophe, but usually if you see the depictions, it's like a huge meteor crashes and then there's clouds of dust and it's flying all over and everything dies. No, the dying was very gradual. It took hundreds of years, probably like decades, not hundreds of years, but decades for these creatures to completely die out. What happened first is that a lot of dust and all these rocks and water and everything evaporated into the atmosphere. It formed such a huge and thick cloud that all the sunlight was blocked, and the sun, it became a very hazy, dark atmosphere because the light was blocked. And then all these plants that were existing, they basically withered away. And the dinosaurs and huge creatures which generally sustained on like plant or plant-based life forms, they died out. And then finally, when these huge reptiles, they died out, the mammals had their day. They finally had a chance to come out from underneath the rocks and the small crevices in the caves. And these mammals were like shrews. I don't know if you've seen a shrew, but it's kind of like a rat. And they were like rat-like creatures. And they were definitely more intelligent. They were warm-blooded. They were more suited for the new environment because they were small and therefore they did not require to eat the same kind of like plant food and whatever. And they didn't have the same appetite as the dinosaurs. And so they started thriving. And these shrews kind of evolved into higher, more neurologically complex beings. And then ultimately that led to the way of apes. And then apes evolved into, today, the different branches we see like monkeys and chimps and human beings. So we are actually indebted to the primitive apes. Now imagine that 65 million years ago, if that disaster did not take place and there were only dinosaurs, humans would have no chance to inherit this planet. Or I won't say inherit because that's a huge responsibility, but we would not have a chance to walk on this planet because we would never have evolved from those tiny mammals which finally were able to step outside in the light, away from the dinosaurs. So what I'm saying is that everything in life, even a catastrophe that is natural, I'm not saying a human-born catastrophe like a Pakistani nuclear bomb. crazy people, right? They will, if they are incensed a lot, they may just go and drop a bomb in India. But I'm not talking about catastrophes born out of human free will, but natural disasters. It could be the widespread disease. It could be a meteorite. It could be a comet. It could be, I don't know, two galaxies crashing into each other. That's happening. There's a galaxy called the Andromeda Galaxy, which is rushing towards the Milky Way at an not exponential, but at a very fast pace. And within a couple of billion years, all the stars from that galaxy are going to crash into ours, and there will be a huge circus. So, suppose human beings survived a couple of billion years, they would see all these stars like flying in the sky back and forth and moving and trying to finally reform a larger galaxy. Obviously, that is going to destroy several solar systems in our own galaxy, but it is having its own purpose. There is a design behind it, and I don't mean this Christian form of intellectual design, but I'm saying that nature is intelligent and nature plays itself out. It is nature itself that has given birth to us as complex creatures able to think and rationalize. So I would not want to assume too much about like future consequences of our actions, because it is completely beyond our capacity to do so. I think I've said a lot. Any further thoughts? Oh yeah, Nirmala ji, they do actually sell roadkill.
Very informative, Prashant. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe we can move to the next section and the next verse. Okay. So it's Shamu Bhai, but I would say if Nirmala ji can actually just read this, and then Shamu Bhai can start from up here. So if you can chant.
Karma Yoga releases you from the hold of Raga Dveshas.
Sorry, I meant, can you chant the verse?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah.
Read the passage.
Yajñartat karmano nyatrah lokoyam karma bandhanah tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangah samachara.
Okay, thank you. Shamu Bhai.
Karma Yoga releases you from the hold of Raga Dveshas. Same karma, however, will not itself releasing factor and assist in one's release is done with the attitude of Karma Yoga. As we have seen, by performing karma in this way, one is released from the hold of Raga Dveshas, likes and dislikes. Therefore, the same karma becomes a means, a sadhana. In next few verses, the karma done this way is being referred to as yajna. It becomes yoga and one gains Shuddha Antakarana, a pure mind. In this pure mind, the person gains the knowledge that is moksha. This then is the order. Beginning with the next verse and ending with 16th verse, Krishna then talked about karma as a means leading to moksha.
Okay. You can continue.
This person who is enjoined to do action is bound by karma other than that performed for the sake of yajna, other than the action performed as an offering to Ishvara. For this reason, Kaunteya, being one free from attachment, perform action for the sake of that. Yajna is a very important word in Vedic literature. Even though the word means a sacrificial ritual, in a wider sense, yajna means every action of one's life is performed as an offering to Ishvara. In an act of giving, there is a giver, something given, and a recipient. In offering such as a ritual, one more factor is involved. The offering, the altar. Thus, there is the altar of offering. The recipient who is involved in the offering, the one who does the offering and the offering itself. Generally, in any offering, there is a word like swaha or namaha, meaning I offer this salutation. For example, when we say Namah Shivaya, it means unto the Lord Shiva I offer this salutation. And this is an offering. When this expression is repeated over and over again, it becomes a japa yajna. Even the food you eat is an offering. Although most people
Hello. Sorry, the voice went off.
sorry, I lost.
Can you hear?
Lost.
Sorry, am I the only one who can't hear correctly?
Yeah, it's not clear.
Okay, I
It's
see.
not clear.
Okay. Shamubai, can we probably come back to you then?
Yeah.
Because it's skipping a lot of words here. So yeah, by the way, Malaji has joined us today. So I just recently spoke to her from our Vedanta study group, and she showed interest in joining the Gita classes. So yeah, Malaji, welcome. We are currently on chapter 3, and what we are doing is we usually gather once a week at 7 o'clock on Saturdays. In fact, this is our permanent timing, unless there are some like special accommodations that need to be made. And we go around in a group reading different sections of the text. So, and once each section is complete, then we have a discussion if there are any salient points to go over. So, are you able to? Do you have a working mic? Maybe you can read the next section for us, or continue with this section. So you'll probably have to like unmute yourself from here. Okay. Okay, we'll probably swing back to you. But yeah, if you are able to read, you'll just have to unmute next time. Nirmalaji, would you like to continue just from here? I think
Yeah, sure.
this is where
Generally,
Sam left.
yeah. Generally, in any offering, there is a word like swaha or namaha, meaning I offer this salutation. For example, when we say Namah Shivaya, it means unto Lord Shiva, I offer this salutation, and this is an offering. When this expression is repeated over and over again, it becomes a japa yajna. Even the food you eat is an offering, although most people do not think of it as such. If, however, you look upon the digestive system as digestive fire, the food offered into that fire is an offering, and the altar of this offering is the digestive process, prana, itself. Therefore, before eating, the food is offered to the Lord in the form of prana. Nothing in the creation is looked upon as something separate from the Lord. The Lord is a conscious being, Chetna. Only in a conscious being does the activity of digestion take place, and the food offered is not separate from the Lord. This is why the 15th chapter of the Gita and the shloka Brahmarpanam are repeated before eating. These verses make it very clear that everything is the Lord, including the food we eat and the one who eats it. Therefore, eating is an offering. In a fire ritual, the altar is the fire, the turf. The oblation is offered unto the fire. The offerer is called Yajamana, and Yajamana, and the recipient of the offering, Devata. Usually, when you offer something to another person, you expect reciprocal treatment. You expect something in return from that person. Giving and receiving gifts during the Christmas season is a case in point. You offer a gift to another, no matter how small, and that person offers you something also.
Okay.
I had asked a question, it's got answered.
Oh yeah. Puja Samji does that, right? Now we discover this probably in the start of the Gita also, that anytime there was a question, the next section will answer it. It's very nice. And this is what makes a good teacher, to be honest, because the Acharya does not assume that everybody gets everything. There will always be certain pending questions, and a good teacher is able to put themselves in the the feet of the student to see that, okay, if I am the one who is receiving these teachings, what could be a follow-up question that I might have to it? And I've never found anybody as cognizant of this feature as Pujya Swamiji. So it's very nice to be able to study the Gita home study.
Very true. Thank you.
Okay, so I think since the next part is connected, we can continue reading. Nivedita ji?
Yeah. All offerings belong to the Lord alone. Because giving gifts at Christmas time is a convention, a beautiful convention, you have to offer and return is expected. It is not the gift you are interested in. It is the care and consideration, the remembrance of the person that counts. But when we offer something to the Devata like Indra, reciprocity is not a factor. As part of the yajna itself, I say in so many words that what I am offering belongs to Indra. It does not belong to me.
Okay, so if you want to read the subtext also.
This is me here refers to this is the mantra that we say when we make an offering to the Lord. Indraya Swaha, Indraya Idam Namama, offered unto Indra. This is now Indra's, not mine anymore.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
In this way, everything is looked upon as a yajna, as we shall see in the 4th chapter. The breathing process is a yajna. The breath that yajna.
Yajna.
The breath that goes.
So it's a Nya. Sorry, so this is Nya. So it's like Jnana, like that.
Okay. Yajna.
Okay, go ahead.
This breath that goes out is called prana, and the incoming breath when you breathe in is called apana. When you breathe out, the prana is offered to apana, and when you breathe in, apana. And when you breathe in, the apana is offered back to prana. In this way, breathing is considered to be a yajna. Those who are committed to the practice of pranayama, control of breath, are not really doing exercises. They are performing a yajna, prana being Ishvara, the Lord. In the same way, all exercises and yogic postures, asanas, are considered to be yajnas. In fact, each asana has its own devata. Indian music is also a yajna. Every defined melody, raga, is considered to have a head, trunk, and feet. Certain Indian paintings depict each raga with the form of a goddess. Thus, even ragas, melodies, have their own presiding deities. Any one aspect in the creation can be looked upon as an aspect of Ishvara, and that aspect becomes the presiding deity or devata. Thus, in any given object, you can invoke the total or an aspect of the total. If it is an aspect, it is called devata. Any functionary, such as eyes, ears, nose, and other organs, has a presiding deity, devata, which is but Ishvara.
Okay. So, right. So over here, as Pujya Swamiji points out, so these talks were given, and usually you'll see there's a lot of context crafted for Americans, because this talk was given in Salisbury, USA in 1987. So that's why he's like mentioning Christmas. Otherwise, he would talk about like Diwali or something in India. But anyway, so as he says that when you give something, you expect some reciprocity over here. You expect something back in return. But for us in our Indian culture, it is very different, because when we offer, we say namama. any offering that you give into the yajna, you say na mama, and that means that it no longer belongs to me. Once I've given it, it is not mine any longer. If you give something to somebody with the thought that this is mine and I've given it to you, then you will always have that expectation back in return. Now you should give something back to me. So, but in our culture, since everything is Ishvara and everything belongs to Ishvara, including the very self which is Ishvara, then there is no question of me or mine, and you have to give something back and whatever. So whatever you offer, it is gone. Once it's given, it's gone, and you don't have to put your eyes or your mind on it any longer. So that is very important. The Namama principle is very unique to our culture. Any thoughts on this? Yeah. So Shamubai is, as he's pointing out, is Yagnya. So Yagya is actually Hindi, but in Sanskrit is Yagnya. So how they say in Hindi, Gyani, but we say Jnani. So like that. Okay.
And just off the thing question. See, for every action, we are saying there's a presiding deity and things like that. So is that why we have 33 crore devatas in our Hindu this thing?
So the 33 crore thing has been very exoticized by Westerners. And many times they use it for deriding Hindus. They'll also put it that way. That, you guys have so many gods and we can't even remember all the names and it is so confusing and you are polytheists and all. Because if you see any of our teachings, whether you see Pujya Swamiji's Gita Home Study or Swami Brahma Pratyanandaji, nobody has ever brought this 33 crore Devta thingy up, right? Because it is something that usually is passed around in these Western academic circles as a point of derision. So that is one thing I wanted to say off chart. But now when we talk about these different devatas, they are different devatas. Like you have Indra, you have Brihaspati, you have Agni, you have Vayuhu, you have Varunaha. So all of these devatas are there in Swarga. They are also jivas. They are also like us, but they are more exalted. They have more capacities. They have more potential. They have longer lives. They have more, reach. Their reach is more universal. For example, Indra can come here, but we cannot go there. Agni can pass messages from here to Swarga Loka, but we cannot do anything. We are stuck here. So their capacities are greater than ours, but they are also jivas. They are also limited beings in terms of upadhis. So that is how one has to understand devatas, or rather the different devas that are there. So there are countless, as we say, there are 7 billion people on earth. There must be 33 crore devas in Swarga, possibly. But they are also like us only, jivas with more capacities, that's all. But when we talk about devata, like presiding deity, it could refer to an aspect of Ishvara, or it could also refer to Deva. For example, when you talk about the you guys completed the Tatvabodha right now, no? So the deity of the arms is Indra. Indra here is a Deva, but then if you look upon, say, the deity of Hridaya Shivastishtatu, so this is there in the Rudram Lagunyasya. So Shiva Bhagavan is like the presiding deity of the heart, or sometimes you see Ishanaha. So that is another name for Lord Shiva. So, but here Shiva is not a deity. Here you're actually referring to, again, just another name and form for Ishvaraha. So Shiva is the one unto which everything else resolves. Shiva is the one which is all auspicious. So you know how in the West they say, oh, you guys have a trinity, creator, preserver and destroyer. No, we don't have that. We don't say Shiva is a destroyer at all. We say Shiva is that into which all the jivas find their resolution. The entire Jagat finds its resolution. All the effects find their resolution in the cause. Then this Ishvara is the ultimate primal causeless cause. Similarly, we don't talk about creation also. We don't say Brahmaji is a creator. We say there is only a manifestation. Nothing can be created. Nothing can be destroyed. Creation and destruction are Western paradigms. That is the God of the Bible, or the God of the Quran, or the God of the Torah. Whereas for us, whatever is existing will always exist. Whatever is not existing can never exist. All that can happen is a transformation in terms of name and form. The Nama Rupa will continue to be changed and modified. But existence always is there. how something exists in a particular form that will undergo modification. So this is what we call manifestation. The Jagat is always there, but the Jagat is unmanifest. Then the Jagat and the names and forms become very evident, and that is what you call manifestation. And then again the names and forms are resolved back into its existing cause, and that is what you call the dissolution or the resolution or the pralaya, whichever way you want to put it. So there is a slight distinction between the devas and Ishvara we talk about, because everything, including the jivas, human beings also, animals also, creatures also, mosquitoes also, they're all nothing but an aspect of Ishvara. So the devas are only more exalted, that's all. Okay, any other thoughts around this? I'm not sure if that exactly answers the question, but yeah, these terms are extremely annoying. Creator and destroyer, but that is how we find translations these days. Oh yeah, so when we speak about music also, we say Saraswati Ma is the presiding deity of music, of all arts really, right? So it could be music, it could be knowledge, any form of knowledge. It could be, and then when we talk about Bharatanatyam, can anybody tell me who is the presiding deity for that, or who is invoked?
Nataraja?
Yes. So you have the Shiva Tandavam, which is a like very famous sort of dance that people depict in Bharatanatyam. So then you might have some other form of music also. I'm not very familiar with all these things, but then Kuchipudi might have their own presiding deity. Kathak may have one. Odissi might have something else. So this way, we in our culture have a very beautiful tendency to what do you say, to place Ishvara in the center of all our activities, and to place Ishvara as the very giver of all our knowledge of these various art forms. When you talk about Sanskrit, in fact, Panini, there's a story which goes, I guess this is interesting to share. Panini was not very bright. He was not a very intelligent student, and so he was just wandering around one day, and then he chanced upon Lord Shiva, and then Shiva Bhagwan was shaking his damru, and from the damru emanated these sounds, and they were the basis for the Maheshwarani Sutrani. So there are I don't remember it, but these Maheshwarani Sutranis are extremely relevant when one is studying Panini Sutra. So this is something that Karthik Bhai had taught me a very long time ago, which I don't recall. You can Google it, Maheshwarani Sutrani. And so when he heard these sounds coming out, emanating from the damru, suddenly Panini became very bright. He became a scholar. He became extremely intelligent, and he formulated and categorized Sanskrit as the wonderful, perfect language we see today. So similarly, if you see this Ramanujan, mathematician, great mathematician, right? On the fly, if he's traveling in a cab or if he's going out for a walk, he'll just see a few numbers and he'll be able to relate them to some very esoteric mathematical formulation. He'll come up with his own theorems which people take decades to solve. He'll come up with it in an instant. And so when he went to Oxford or Cambridge, one of these two colleges, he went to study under another very famous mathematician called G.H. Hardy. And he was asked that, so what is your inspiration? How do you get all this? And he said, this Mataji, a certain Devi, comes to him in his as his inspiration and presents him with all these mathematical formulations. It could be true also, because ultimately when we talk about the Vedas, there are some things in life where you just get this inspiration and you have absolutely no idea where it came from. You have absolutely no way to understand that I could have been the creator of such a magnificent product. You just can't. Sometimes you get this beautiful insight and you're like, how could I have come up with it? And it just happens. So even when we talk about the Vedas, we say it is revealed from Ishvara, it is given from Sri Dakshinamurti, or it is given from Narayan, or whoever, whichever your Ishta Devata is. You can ascribe that Devata as the one who has given you this profound knowledge of the Vedas. And therefore even the Rishis did not have a sense of doership, that yes, we are the author of the Vedas, because the Vedas are ultimately revealed knowledge. And I don't mean revealed again in the Abrahamic sense, but I actually mean that this is something there's no chosen one over here, right? If you look at the Abrahamic traditions, you have these chosen prophets. You have this Muhammad, or you have this whatever Jesus, or you have Abraham, or you have Moses. All of these people were specifically chosen by God in so and so era. But for us, we are so more pluralistic. We don't say that there's something more special about Shankara, or there's something more special about Ved Vyasa, or there's something more special about Durvasa, or whoever. All of these great rishis, there were countless rishis. And all of them were equal stakeholders of this knowledge, because based on their own vrittis, based on their own chitta shuddhi, based on their own punya karma, based on their own proclivities and previous lifetimes also, they were the ones who received this knowledge. And so that is why that Sanatana Dharma is so pluralistic, because we don't ascribe the authorship of the Vedas to any one person. In fact, we say this is nothing but Ishvara's breath. The breath of Ishvara is what you refer to as the Vedas. So any deep inspiration that comes to you, it could be Bharatanatyam, it could be Sanskrit, it could be great mathematical theorem. It is very much in our culture to ascribe all of this to Ishvara, all of this inspiration, because ultimately it comes from Ishvara. Even for argument's sake, somebody's, Ramanuja subconsciously from his own buddhi came up with this. Where does the buddhi come from? Clearly, Ramanuja did not create his own buddhi. It came from somewhere. Then they can say, but then these are all the DNAs, it is the genes. But then the genes came from somewhere. And ultimately, every manifestation, however complex it may be, has a more basic cause which can be traced back. And ultimately, you may trace back everything to the beginning of the universe, or even before the Big Bang. But then the question is, what was before that? And the answer to everything, depending on whatever stage you are at, you can say it is Ishvara. Because you could either scientifically work through all the causes and all the effects and all the consequences, or you could simply, simplify your life and say that no, this is all Ishvara. So this is the most unique aspect of the Hindu culture, where Ishvara is the centerpiece of all our activities and all our inspiration. And that is why we ascribe a presiding deity to everything, including the different parts of the body. So shall we close off here? I guess we've covered quite a bit to think about. Okay. So Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste everyone.